Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Rents here, host of the Raiders Report, and coming up here on today's show, are the Silver and Black going to add a nose tackle to their roster this offseason? When I started doing this show, I always looked for people that I trusted. I always looked for people that I thought, you know what, they make good content. And there's a lot of people that make a lot of good content here amongst Raider Nation, right? You got Sanjeet, you got my guy, Graphic Raider, Wasted. These guys are on YouTube, but there are other people that have been in the game that don't make YouTube content, but when they say something, I know that the nation listens. So Tristen Kuhn, some of y'all might know him as Scout on Instagram, threw out a very interesting idea on Twitter, and he was basically saying, like, he thought that the Raiders still needed to go out and add somebody on the interior defensive line, especially at nose tackle, because the defensive depth for this Raiders team is young, and it is unproven. Here's exactly what he had to say. One area I could see the Raiders adding depth is the interior defensive line. Starters currently project as Christian Wilkins and John Jenkins. Adam Butler will rotate in and see likely 55 to 70% of the team's snaps. Could see Tyree Wilson play inside a little, but the remaining depth is young and it is unproven. So today we're going to be talking about some potential defensive tackles, nose tackles, that the Raiders could look at to potentially bring in if they're, let's face it, not very confident in a lot of the other players that they have on this roster. I'll tell you this, though. Between Christian Wilkins, John Jenkins, Tyree Wilson, and Adam Butler, from all those players that you see up on screen right now, I do have confidence in these guys. Like, these are players that I do believe in, can have some solid rotation, but here's the other thing. If you don't think that Tyree Wilson is going to be a defensive tackle on this roster, then yes, the Raiders do absolutely positively need to go out and add a little bit more depth here. And if you're not even sold on the other nose tackles that we have for depth, then yeah, you still need to go out and add somebody. Now, I want to know what your confidence level is in this Raiders defensive tackle room this season, because this is one of the rooms that I am extremely confident in. So scale it for me from 1 to 100. 1 being you're not confident at all. 100, it's the best defensive tackle group in the National Football League. The number that I'm going to be here is about a 94. And the reason why that I'm at a 94 is because of the confidence level that I have in Christian Wilkins being one of the best DTs in the league. And the other reason why that I'm so confident in Adam Butler, going to be a good depth player. John Jenkins, going to be a good depth player. Tyree Wilson, going to be a good player as well, is because when you have Malcolm Kuntz, Max Crosby, it's also going to make your defensive tackle roster better. However, though, if you don't think that Tyree's going to be out there, you still need to be able to go out and add a little bit of depth. So coming up here on today's show, I'm going to break down my confidence level in each Raiders defensive tackle spot, because if I'm going to sit up here and look at other DTs, but I'm also going to sit up here and say that I have a lot of confidence in this room, I have to be able to paint a picture together of why would Telesco, why would Antonio Pierce go out and add somebody? The reason why they would is because they don't have a lot of confidence in their depth. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to tell you the confidence level that I have in each and every one of the players on this Raiders defensive tackle group, minus the guys that are pictured. Why? Because every single player that is pictured right now, I have the confidence that if they go out on the field, whether it's whenever, that when they're out there, they're going to get the job done. Now, when you look at Byron Young, Marquand McCall, Butler, Shannon, Nesta Jade, Silvera, and Fox, I'm going to go through all those names, and I'm going to tell you my confidence level in them, scale from 1 to 100. And again, like when I do my ratings, it's based on if you're a 90 and above, you're like an elite football player. If you're 80 to 90, you're a good football player. I think that's like an Adam Butler. If you're 70 to 79, you're like a John Jenkins in that group. Anything below a 70 to me, I don't have confidence in. Now, Byron, I'm hoping he's better, but like if God forbid, if something were to go happen to Wilkins, Adam Butler, or John Jenkins, and you got to put Byron Young into this situation, I'm not going to be confident. I'm going to sit up here on this show and I'm going to go, you need to go out and you need to sign a free agent, just like a Matthew Butler, another player. Now, I will admit, out of all these guys that I'm about to talk about, Butler is probably the one that I have the most confidence in. But even him, I'm not really confident in him. I'm confident in Butler because you saw at least a little bit at times last season, and this was a player that the Raiders decided to at least keep on that 53-man roster, and Butler was playing at the end of last season, not a guy like Byron Young. Another dude that I would like to see more out of, and I'm really hoping he takes that next step, because if you're talking just pure nose tackle, right? Who's the better pure nose tackle out of Nesta Jade Silvera, Byron Young, and then Matthew Butler? It's Nesta Jade. He's got the body. He's a bigger anchor. I'm just hoping he's able to take that next step and gets himself in a better football shape because that's something that he needs to go with a little bit along the way. Before I get into my confidence level for these next few players here, reminder to subscribe and join the Noti Gang. Mitch, how do you join the Noti Gang? First step you got to do is hit that subscribe button. Step number 2, click the notification bell underneath the video. Step 3, select all as an option. That way, every time we drop a video, you get an alert on your phone like a booty call, and you can just click on it, answer it. That way you don't miss it. Let's go to Marquand McCall here. I'm going to go with a 59. He's a gigantic human being. He has lost some weight, but the talent just from a how good standpoint he is isn't there. I would also rather the Raiders invest in the 3 players that I just talked about, Nesta Jade, Byron Young, Matthew Butler, instead of investing in Marquand McCall just because those players are a little bit younger. Tamari Fox is a UDFA, and I just don't have a lot of confidence in any UDFA right now. He could turn out to be a good player, but again, if you're just telling me what I know as of right now, at the time that I'm making this video in May, you can't have a lot of confidence in Tamari Fox. You can't have a lot of confidence in Noah Shannon, who both of those players are undersized defensive tackles. Both players are UDFAs. And then on top of that, with Noah Shannon, he's had some prior off-the-field issues, right? So you got the prior off-the-field issues, undersized DT in a city like Las Vegas. You add all those up, and yes, I'm not very confident in a lot of the depth that the Raiders have, but I still think this is one of the better defensive tackle groups based on the 4 players that were pictured, based off the top-level talent that we have. So back here to what Kuhn was saying about the Raiders potentially adding a nose tackle. Young showed little. If anything, last year, and Butler is likely a 4th or 5th interior defensive line in his career, though he's had a few interesting moments last year. Depth at nose tackle is pretty weak, but can supplement with Butler and Wilkins. Would like to see Telesco add one more proven guy on the interior. So coming up here on the show, and literally the reason why I did this is because I don't disagree with what Scout's saying. And I don't think a lot of y'all are probably disagreeing with what Scout's saying. If you find an area that you think that you can improve on, and if adding an interior defensive lineman is that way to do it, then guess what? I'm on board for it. It's just win, baby. It's commitment to excellence. And if you feel like that you have a spot that you can improve on, and there's a free agent out there that you can improve with, then you should absolutely do it. So coming up, I'm going to give you 5 names to keep in mind that I think Telesco should try to go out and sign. Before I get into that, though, we do have some awesome hats on sale, and I will admit, selfishly, I don't even know if it's selfishly, I don't have the pictures of all the new hats that we just got, but when I tell you we have tons, and I mean tons of brand new hats that nobody has ever seen before, go to chatsports.com/Raiders hats. Those links are going to be available to y'all down in the comments and in the description of today's show. Seriously, go check it out. Father's Day is right around the corner. If you need an awesome little gift for dad, hey, you get the setup. I also will always say that buying hats for people, like the snapbacks, is a little bit easier than buying shoes, than buying shirts, than buying shorts, because you don't necessarily know exactly what size they are. And if you are trying to plan a gift, you kind of tip the cap, right? Like, when are you ever going to randomly ask your mom or your dad, hey, what size shoe are you? The answer is probably when you're about to buy them a pair of shoes, right? Like, so this way, you can get them a hat. You can just get a snapback. Size basically fits all. Chatsports.com/Raiders hats is the link. We got all sorts of hats, corduroys, trucker hats, brand new ones as well, available to y'all down in the comments and in the description of today's show. Coming up, let's look at some Raiders free agent defensive tackle targets that Telesco and Antonio Pierce could potentially sign, because that's why I'm making this video. Like, it's easy to sit up here and say the Raiders need to add a nose, they need to be able to go out and add a defensive tackle because you don't like the depth. I created the problem. The solution is trying to find somebody that you can sign to make it happen. And luckily for the Raiders, they're going to have the money to sign the players that they want. You currently are somewhere sitting around about $17 million, 16th most in the NFL. You're going to get that $24.1 million from the Jimmy G cut that you had post-June 1st. That's coming up. So then you're going to be somewhere around $41.1 million in cap space on June 2nd. Like, you have the money to go out and sign any of the players that I'm about to talk about. You also have then money on top of that if you want to go out and extend guys like a Nate Hobbs, like a Malcolm Kuntz, a Robert Spillane. The bottom line is that The Raiders have the money to do it, and if they don't, they just simply don't think that they need to. If they do decide that they want to watch this video, and they do decide that they need to go out and add a defensive tackle, you will have to end up cutting at least one player, so just think about that. They got 91 guys on the roster. They're allowed to have 91 because of the International Pathway Program. So if they decide to move on from one player, the names that I'm going to look at and continue to throw out there are these 6 names here. Alex Bachman is the most recent signing that the Raiders had just like last week. Then, out of all the other 5 names that are on this show, the names that you're seeing on here are the second-year players that were at the Raiders rookie minicamp. So if you're a second-year guy at rookie minicamp, chances are you're not very high on that depth chart. So let's get into the show right now. Number 1 on the list, if the Raiders really truly believe that they need to add a nose, that they need to add a little bit of extra defensive tackle depth because they're not confident in some of these younger guys, the number 1 name on this show is Calais Campbell. Like, he's still he's old. All right, let's get that out of the way. If you took away this guy's age and all I showed you is the production that he continues to have year in and year out, you'd be like, yeah, this guy, I'm signing him into the heartbeat. But because he's 38 years old and because Father Time is undefeated, people forget the fact that he has started in at least 12 games every single year since 2009. Last season, according to PFF, also played at a very high level. Like, I know that me bringing him up, people are going to say, but Mitch, he's getting up there in age. I know it's totally different positions. Casey Hayward. Sometimes you just need to find players that are the right fit in your defense. And if you really, truly believe that you need another nose tackle, it's not a shocker to me that on some of the defense that Calais Campbell has played on, they've been pretty damn good defenses. So let me know down below. Should the Raiders sign Campbell? Give me a yes. Give me a no. Let me know what y'all are thinking, because to me, I do think that Calais Campbell would be a good fit here with the Raiders. Bottom line, I think Calais Campbell would be a good fit on just about any single NFL team. Why? If you're in the NFL and you can improve at any position, at any depth, why the hell would you not do it? Like, Campbell to me is the top interior defensive lineman that is on the free agent market. The Raiders have the money to do it. And then also, if the Raiders are legitimate about putting Tyree Wilson on the outside, then yeah, your defensive tackle need becomes even bigger. I'm even saying, even if the Raiders wanted to put Tyree Wilson on the inside, still leave him in there, guess what? I am then even saying on top of that I would want Calais Campbell, because at the end of the day, he makes this defense better and he adds a lot more depth, which last time I checked, very, very important. Now we're going to go to a big tier break. Like, Calais Campbell is the player that I think makes the most sense. Number 2 might be the one that I would just simply say, if somebody were to ask me, Mitch, Raiders are going to sign one more defensive tackle this offseason. Who's it going to be? Where's your money going? My money's going to go on Linval Joseph. Why? Because a lot of the times in the offseason, as the months go on, after the free agency, after the draft, the players that end up signing are based on connections with the coaches. Linval Joseph has that connection with Tom Telesco from the 2 seasons that he spent with the Los Angeles Chargers back from 2020 to 2021. I also know that the AFC West matters to this coaching regime. Yeah, sure. Joseph was bad last season. He played 161 snaps, has bounced from teams like, most recently the Minnesota Vikings, most recently also then the Philadelphia Eagles. I want to say he was with the Buffalo Bills. Like, he was not good. Early on in his career, yeah, he played solid. When he was with Telesco and the Chargers, played solid. I get it that he is the idea of he's getting up there in age and he's definitely slowing down. If you had to tell me who would I rather have, Linval Joseph or Calais Campbell, I'm going to take Calais Campbell every single day of the week. But how much money you're going to have to pay Campbell compared to how much money you'd have to pay Joseph is a little bit different. The final name is based on more depth here and just based on a player that has some AFC West experience. Like, if Calais Campbell's the number 1 option, which, again, I'm sitting up here saying he's the number 1 option, if the Raiders go, well, we don't like the young guys that we have on our team, or we want just some veterans, you want 2 cheap veterans, Linval, Mike Purcell. And Purcell's got 24 starts over the past 3 seasons, been a member of the Broncos since 2019, was a UDFA at one point, and just like, a lot of these other players here, has kind of bounced around some NFL teams, has made himself a staple in the AFC West with the Denver Broncos. Is Purcell really going to change our defense all that much? No. Not really, but he could end up being just a solid defensive depth piece that we could fill in, plug into this defense, and someone that you could just have somewhat reliability on if you don't trust a lot of these young, unproven UDFAs or guys that were on our practice squad. The final name that I'm going to bring up here on the show is a name that one that I know that I'm going to get, Fletcher Cox. And Fletcher Cox is not a free agent. Kind of is. He's retired, though. And anytime we talk about defensive tackles, I was almost tempted to put Ndamukong Suh's name on here because I knew I'd get asked about it. But I knew I'd get asked if I didn't have Fletcher Cox up here. And even though he played 12 seasons in the NFL, he has retired. The only way that you're going to get him to come out of retirement is if, A, you get like a top 10 quarterback that gives you a shot to win a Super Bowl, or you pay Cox probably the amount of money, if not even more, than what. Not even. You'd have to pay Fletcher Cox a lot more than Calais Campbell. I'm talking like $15 million per year, which at that point, I'd rather just pay Calais Campbell like $8 million and make that action happen. So do I agree with the idea that the Raiders need to go out and add a defensive tackle or a nose tackle? Yes, especially if you don't want to have Tyree Wilson on the inside. Also, if you have no faith in a lot of these younger players who you did not draft, Byron Young, Matthew Butler, Nesta Jade Silvera, none of those guys were drafted by this regime. So Telesco AP, they don't have a lot of the connections. The Raiders could always use better depth. Every NFL team could, and especially if you could potentially make your starter better with a Calais Campbell. Options, laid out a few. Calais is the top one. The Raiders have the money, so if they really, truly believe that nose tackle is a need, they have the ability and the financial ability to go out there and make it happen. If you made it this far in the video, shout out to you. Remember, you can always give Jeremy Chugs and I a follow on Instagram. I'm at MitchellRens365. He's at Jeremy Chugs. Thank you for tuning in to the Raiders Report.